Well,
Good
look who it
Goodfellas.
is. Look who it is. Look who got out of Mickey 17.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I apparently don't know the difference between Central Standard Time and Pacific Standard Time.
No, it's fine. How was the movie?
You know what? It was actually a little bit better than what I was anticipating. I have a very low opinion of Bong Joon-ho anytime he's doing an English speaking language movie.
Hmm.
And this one was probably his best one. It still kind of goes off the rails and he spurgs out in like a very Libby sort of way toward
Hmm.
the end.
Hmm.
But it's not as bad. It's not as bad as probably what you would expect from that.
I heard it was real bad.
Really?
I've 86 so many attempts by my wife to go see Mickey 17. I've been like, oh, maybe we should just like stay because but I'm in a weird position because I actually love Snowpiercer. I liked Okja.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm
Yeah,
not
this
a
full like
English.
Okja.
I
Like,
did. I did. I thought it was a pretty good movie. So I'm not primed to hate it, but from what I've seen of it, it just doesn't look good.
I actually had a pretty, I feel like my opinion of Okja when I first watched it was favorable because I just hated Snowpiercer so much. And I was like, and maybe I'm going through that again with this movie where I'm like, well, it wasn't as bad as Snowpiercer.
You
Because
didn't like
I was,
Snowpiercer? That's
no,
crazy to me, bro. That's
it's trash.
what about
I hated
Snowpiercer?
it. I
Break it
just,
down.
I think the real problem with Snowpiercer that sticks in my mind, and that movie came out in what, like 2015 or 2014, so it's been a
It's a
while
while
since
back,
I've
yeah.
actually sat down
Yeah.
and watched it. But I hated, you know what? It's gonna sound a little silly here. I hated the ambition of it. I hated that he was shooting so high and brought all these different types of actors from different walks of life together. And you have like the Korean guy speaking, and then who is it? Like Chris Evans understands what he's saying or something. I was getting pissed off seeing all
The
that.
funniest part of that movie is where at the end, when they're at that final stage and Chris Evans is giving his big dramatic speech, and he's like, it got so bad. We had to we had to eat babies, man. We had to eat the babies.
Mhm.
That's when I knew I was watching pure Kino right there. It's like, yeah, he's got to
Maybe
eat
I
the
got to go back to it. I don't know. With Okja, it was kind of a similar problem, but I thought it wasn't as egregious. He kind of
because it
saved
was
his
funny,
lane a little
right?
bit
Like
more.
Okja was funny. It had a sense of
Mhm.
humor, but
It's like on the same level. It's actually a little bit better than at least my opinion of Okja, Mickey
mhm.
17. I think the first 30 minutes are actually great. I was like, damn, am I about to be clowned on for saying on Twitter I'm going to hate this movie before I watch it? I started to feel that way. But what really I think brings it down, and maybe you'll see this and understand, is Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo and
I
Tony
hate that
Collette,
motherfucker.
they're in a different movie. They're over the top. He's doing, people have said, he's not doing a Trump thing, but he's kind of doing it. You know what he's actually doing? He's doing Trump and Elon combined. He's doing the Trump spray tan visual. He's doing Elon's weird, socially awkward shit. And, it's not even like, it's not so, pushing it down your throat, but they're just in a different movie. It's like you're engaging with cartoon characters and there's three different plots and I don't know, it started to unspool in like the third act, I would say, but it was fine. It wasn't a waste of money at the movies.
What do you
so
think
it's
about his
it's not
Korean movies, though?
17 acts.
No. So I missed that question there.
Oh, but his Korean movies are untouchable, though.
I think,
Like
yeah, no,
like
I think his
Memories of
Korean movies are
Murder,
great.
fucking. I liked Parasite a lot
I
too.
like
Me too.
Parasite. I
Me
don't
too.
care.
It's good. People have kind of revolted against Parasite because it is overrated on places like Letterboxd and it won Best Picture. But I actually think that movie's still pretty solid. And I was doing a show earlier today with this guy, DC, who saw Mickey 17 and he was like, "You guys are crazy for hating Mickey 17." And I was like, "We haven't even seen Mickey 17. What are you talking
Mhm.
about?" And he noted something that I thought was really interesting, which is that when Bong Joon-ho does English language movies, he talks down to the audience and he doesn't do that with his Korean movies. Like
Mm.
his messages are very simplified and how he tries to communicate certain plot points or messaging is not as sophisticated as what he does with his Korean language films. And maybe that's, a struggle of him translating or maybe he has a low opinion of Westerners. I can't tell.
Whoa, so his wait, Bong Joon, I like this. Bong Joon-ho, when he's doing Western movies, is actually racist.
Yeah.
I like
You
that.
it could be seen
I
that
like
way.
that.
It'd be like
Yeah.
us doing a Japanese joint
That
where
shit would slap,
we
bro. That shit would be tight as fuck.
it'd just be like dudes with dragon tattoos swinging swords being like
Dude,
ching-chong,
Japanese people, if we made a
Amazing.
Japanese movie, like Japanese people would watch that and say, they nailed it. That's perfect. Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
how we are.
Well, that is kind of the response typically, right? Like in America, it seems like yeah, they're really sticking it to us, and that people get a kick out of that. I would have to assume you would think probably it's the same in Japan, unless there's that World War II nuclear bomb resentment still going around.
That's a big
Our
one. It's a big resentful thing, but it had to happen. Sorry, guys.
Hey,
We had
I'm
to.
still waiting on the thank you. We gave you everything from Godzilla to Dragon Ball. Like all that inspiration came from one
It was,
bomb.
yeah, if you think
Yeah.
about it, if you think about it, like Fat Man and Little Boy were creativity bombs in a sense, right? They were just
America is the reason for Japan's whole culture.
yeah.
If it wasn't for us like turning them all into shadows on a wall, we would never have gotten anime.
You wouldn't have gotten one of my favorite movies,
That's true.
House,
Hausu,
here. There we
Hausu.
go.
Oh yeah.
This
My
was not
man's got
intentional, by the way. I was just wearing this because I just got this in the mail yesterday, but it's so fitting to wear for your show.
it is.
Hell
It
yeah.
really is.
Shouts out our first appearance on, was that our first appearance?
On
No,
movies
No, we did a Korean movie. We did Decision to
Decision to
Leave.
Leave. Yep.
Yes.
that I watched with the worst subtitles of all time. I still don't know what that movie was about, really. It was very impressionistic because I was kind of halfway between watching a movie that was subtitled in English and just a Korean movie.
Hmm.
And so it was a very kind of transcendental thing. But I still felt things at the end when she lets the ocean take her and all that kind of shit. It was good shit.
I
Did you
felt
feel a
like
desire
maybe
to
I'd,
buy an iPhone? Because it was just an iPhone commercial. Hey, did you see the iPhone? Hey, I'm texting on the iPhone. That was it for 2 hours. That's what I got.
that's the joke I was about to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt compelled to buy an iPhone. Yeah. No, that shit was good.
Hmm.
Uh, Speaking of subtitles, the movie we're talking about tonight, Takeshi Kitano's Sonatine, I found on a Polish website with
Nice.
perfect, perfect 1080p rip. It
Hmm.
was beautiful, no buffer issues, no pop-ups. So shout out Poland pirate sites.
Hey, we do
Uh,
good shit, bro.
no subtitles either. I was just
No
like,
subtitles.
I
Oh,
was
You watched the
like,
movie
raw
with no
dogging it.
subtitles?
yeah, I'd never seen
This
it before either.
this will be
So
interesting. Yeah, this
it
will be
was
very
great. I
interesting.
fucking loved it.
But we have to get low res on for this one though, because is this your favorite movie? It's top five movie
Oh,
for you?
favorite movie? No, it's not my favorite movie. It's probably not even my favorite Takeshi Kitano movie,
What
but
is your
this
favorite
movie,
movie?
man, my favorite movie changes like every 10 years. I love a lot of camaraderie films. So like when I was 12 years old, my favorite movie was Stand By Me. When I was 20 something years old, it was Train Spotting. Now it's Husbands, the John Cassavetes movie.
Okay.
So whatever the next level up, Grumpy Old Men will be my favorite movie in 10
Oh
years.
It's,
hell
it's a
yeah.
good movie.
I love Grumpy Old Man.
So good.
Grumpier Old Man is even better. Too old, too grumpy.
But this movie's definitely it had a significant impact on me. I watched it, I think, right before going to shoot Mass State Lottery.
Makes
And
sense. Yeah.
I saw this and it kind of changed my whole perspective on um, Japanese filmmaking because I had kind of a low opinion of Japanese filmmaking up
Right.
until first Nabiko Obayashi, but I didn't really go in on him like seriously until probably I don't know, probably around the same time. But Takeshi Kitano, he's always been this figure lingering around in the background. I think for a lot of people, because you have Takeshi's Castle, which was a big hit and became most extreme elimination challenge. So that's really my introduction to him. But then he's also the teacher in Battle Royale, and he's basically playing himself. And then he pops up in other movies like Johnny Mnemonic. He was also in the
Mhm.
Ghost in the Shell American remake.
Yep.
So he's been here and there. They've tried to bring him over to America a few times. It just doesn't work. Um, and then getting to see this, getting to, like a proper introduction to his filmography. This was the first movie he directed that I watched. And I forget how I came across it, but I watched it under similar means to how you did, Kelby. Although I had subtitles. And I think it was the cover art, and then watching the trailer, and then hearing the theme song, which is so like Tubular Bells, and the main theme song for Mass State Lottery. I showed my original composer this movie. And I was like, listen to this guy's music. Do that. Dude, I want that for the theme
Mm,
song of Mass
hmm
State
Oh
Lottery.
yeah.
And come to learn it's Joe Hisaishi, and I thought like this was a deep cut, and I started listening to him on like Spotify. Like he does a lot of Kitano's films, but what most people know him for is like Studio Ghibli. Like he's very well known for Studio Ghibli, and he was doing I think like a tour, and he might have been even performing with an orchestra or something in New York kind of recently. But this was my first introduction to Kitano, and I think it gives you everything you need to know about him as a director, what his MO is, how he balances crime and seriousness with comedy and surrealism, and how every single one of his movies is I'm going to be a short, moody, cool guy, and I'm going to shoot a gun, and I'm going to stare a lot, and then we're going to cut away to some kind of visual gag. And this movie, I think, is like so well executed, especially compared to his movie that immediately precedes this. I think he did Violent Cop and then Sonatine next. I might be wrong about that. Um, but he tends to like improve upon himself with each of these Yakuza films that he does in the 1990s.
I love how it felt like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part One, but for Yakuza, where it's just like we're gonna go fucking around. Like, yeah, we're wizards. Yeah, we're gangsters. We're gonna go shoot at frisbees on the beach.
Hell yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's kind of a genius play if you're a director to be like, yeah, we're going to do the cool Yakuza movie, but then we're just going to take a beach vacation midway through. And that's just an excuse to go to the beach, even if you're working. And that's not the only movie he does where that happens. In fact, there's like one or two others where it's just like, yeah, we're trying to get away from the bad guys. Anyway, let's go to the beach for a half hour. And then that's part of the movie.
It's a big
So
time dudes rock movie.
Mm.
quick
Mm.
quick plot summary. Let's see how spot on I am since I don't speak Japanese. But I think I'm right. I think I'm gonna be right about what the movie's about. Um, and it'll play into how great of a visual director he is. So Takeshi Kitano and a couple other dudes are part of this gang that are recruited by somebody to be like, hey, you need to go and talk to so and so and I don't know, make friendly or something. And Takeshi Kitano is like, no, I don't really like this. Something smell fishy here. And he like beats someone up in a bathroom and and then they're like, maybe you shouldn't have beaten that guy up. And then a bomb goes off, kills some of their crew. They go to the beach to get away from it all. And then eventually there's like a fisherman and he's like, hey, you're the people who we were trying to blow up. And he tries killing them on the beach and he kills one of them. And then Takeshi Kitano is like, oh shit, it's on, son. And then he goes and massacres the whole gang.
Mhm.
And and then that's
I give that like a 65 to 70% accuracy rating.
hell yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's about how accurate I am when I understand what's going on.
Yeah, so he's Takeshi Kitano's character, he is a Yakuza. It's pretty clear if you have subtitles what's going on from the start. Because everybody's mentioning how much territory he has and how well he's doing for himself. Um, he is basically it's a hostile takeover of his territory, right? So they manufacture this big war between two Yakuza fronts that needs to be settled by his gang, and that guy that he beats up in the bathroom is literally just somebody that he doesn't like. It's a part of his own gang, but he doesn't like that guy. Um, and so there's a bunch of fireworks. They go to the beach, and then I guess the powers that be send that fisherman assassin out to kill everybody, but it doesn't work. Has that great scene in the elevator where everybody dies except for like two people, and then yeah, he gets a AR and finishes everybody off. That's
Well, it was
the
like an M16, which was the AR of 1993.
Was that an M16? Okay, cool. Yeah. I don't know guns.
That was not an AR. AR is what you buy your kid when they're 9.
Okay.
M16 is that's a machine of war. That's a weapon of mass destruction.
Right on.
Was this the first Kitano movie that you guys have seen?
No, I'd seen Brother
Oh
before
yeah,
this one.
Brothers, with the one with is it? It's not Mekhi Phifer, Omar Epps.
Yeah, it's
More
Omar
ups.
Epps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Omar Epps.
Yeah, yeah.
I had that saved on Tubi forever ago and then it left. So I meant to see it and haven't seen it. Maybe it's on this Polish site.
What I really liked about this movie, I liked how long he spent on certain shots in the movie. Like time that you wouldn't think would be necessary for whatever scene was going on. He let shit linger, and I thought that was kind of cool. It never felt slow to me. Um,
No, it's an
I
hour
also,
and a half. It's like a really
yeah,
fast
yeah.
movie.
Mm.
I also really like the relationship between the Yakuza dude and like the Okinawa Rube. Like they're like there's this whole conversation that because they're hiding out in Okinawa and this like Rube guy is like, "Oh, you're from Tokyo, right? You know my buddy Jim? Like he's always hanging out around the corner." And the dude from Tokyo is like, no, I don't, I have no idea who that is. He's like, oh, okay, 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 okay. But like they get really close throughout the movie. Like there's a scene that's really good where they're all drinking and hanging out, and like the Rube guy has like this doll, and he's like making the doll like kiss him, and he spreads the doll's legs out. And he's like, "Fuck me, fuck me," and I was like, "That's how dudes hang out. That's good shit." So when that one dude gets shot in the head, it's kind was kind of devastating to me because like the fisherman pulls a gun out, and the Yakuza guy stays and like stares him down, gets shot in the head, but his like Rube friend is like just he booked it, like he just ran as fast as he could. I was like, oh, that was kind of like the scene in Saving Private Ryan where the German guy like slowly puts the knife into the Jew guy's heart, you know? It's like, oh, and there's a dude in the stairwell who could save him but doesn't. I thought that was very effective.
Yeah, I mean, Sonatine, I think the cinematography of it is so patient, and he really does love just letting things like letting shots breathe. And that
Hmm.
becomes a recurring trend with his filmmaking. Also, this was not his second movie. This was his fourth movie. I'm mistaken there. I'm not the best Kitano scholar, I
You
guess.
fucking idiot.
I'm such a retard. He does a movie called Boiling Point, which I think you guys would actually really, really like after Violent Cop, which is kind of like the beta version of Sonatine.
Okay.
And there's a lot of gay jokes in that movie. He like straight up rapes a guy in that movie, and it's like it's a joke. It's a fun gag. Um,
Classic
Sonatine is
Japanese.
yeah, Sonatine's like his first step towards like being really serious, and it's still playful. But the
Hmm.
one that immediately follows is Hanabi. I think people consider that his masterpiece. Have you guys seen that at all?
Apparently, according to Letterboxd, I haven't seen any of his movies besides this one.
Well, Sonatine, I think what this one does best, I think, is encapsulates, in a lot of ways, I just feel like this is a hangout movie.
It
This is
is,
just a
yeah.
vibe
Yeah.
film. It's a vibe piece. The best scenes are at the beach. But I also really like how he does violence in this movie, particularly, but throughout many of his films. Like you'll notice at times, like he'll shoot a shootout, and you won't even really see any of the gore or any of the action. You'll just see like the after effect of that.
Hmm.
You'll see a bunch
Hmm.
of people lying down dead after a hail of gunfire or something like that. and I think he's really starting to hone his style here. And I saw one of you guys tweeted out that this was one of the most beautiful movies ever
That was
made.
me. That was me.
Yeah,
I thought it was very beautiful. Like
it is.
even like everything about it. I mean, like every shot. I really liked the scenes that went on for a long time where it was just like a desolate road in Okinawa and a car would go down a hill and disappear
Hmm.
for about 5 seconds and then come back up the hill. And I liked all the architecture. And what made me tweet that initially was there's a girl in the movie. There has to be a girl. There's always a
I
girl.
love the way they sneak a girl in there too. Is
There's
there's
always a
this
girl.
chick who's getting raped, and he's
Yeah.
like he's
And she's a
Takeshi
psycho.
Kitano
Mhm.
shoots the guy.
There's a great scene with her and Katana too, where they're sitting and she's like, "You're a real tough guy." And he's like, "I'm not tough." He's like, "I shoot anybody who makes me scared." She's like, "Well, that's kind of tough." He's like, "No, I'm scared all the time. Like I just shoot whoever offends me at that moment." She's like, "Oh, you're so cute." But there's a scene where she's on the beach and she's shooting off fireworks, and it's going on at the same time as Kitano is taking his M16 to go eliminate all the other Yakuza dudes. And there's like a far off shot of her like shooting these fireworks off, and I was like, God damn, that's beautiful. Like that's just so cool. And she gets done shooting those fireworks and starts walking along the beach and she falls into like a pit, which is like a bit from earlier where he had been like digging these like holes to for the other Yakuza dudes to fall into. And yeah, no, I thought it was a gorgeous movie.
You know, you touched on something there that I think Kitano has done especially well playing these Yakuza characters, which is a bit of a deconstruction of what you would come to expect or anticipate, especially if you're probably living in Japan during that time, what you would envision as a Yakuza. And
Mm,
he's able to like not necessarily show a vulnerability, but like an ability to fail, an ability
yeah.
to not be the strong Iron Man tough guy, even if he is that, in a way without making it self-deprecating. Like I feel like
Mm,
the American equivalent to this would be something like Barry, the HBO show with Bill Hader, where it's just like they have to almost I don't want to use the word feminize, but they really have to like emasculate whatever that character may be in order to drive a point home about, well, actually, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Da 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 da. I don't think Kitano ever really does that. What he manages to do is, I think, you know, a lot more sophisticated than how that might be probably handled in a Western context.
hmm hmm
Yeah, because he's still cool as shit. Like
Absolutely.
exactly how the chick all getting all bubbly over him when he's just straight up like I'm just a scaredy cat. She's like, "Oh, that's cute." I mean, that's how you feel. You see him being vulnerable, whatever, and you're just like, "Nah, you're cool."
Yeah,
I
nothing
think,
comes
yeah,
before looking cool. That's the base. Okay, I gotta look cool for sure. We can do all this other stuff, but I have to look cool.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it's vital. And I think that with Kitano's performance, I don't speak Japanese, obviously, but he speaks differently than anyone else that I've seen in the hundreds of Japanese movies that I've seen. He's got a real like kind of laid back, almost like mumblecore way of talking, where if you've seen enough of these movies, you know that like he's kind of grunting at people when he talks. And I think that the way that this, you know, this kind of masculine, like I like what you said because it is a very specific lane that I feel would be difficult to replicate, where he is still cool, he looks cool, but he's got a kind of exaggerated blankness to him that makes this whole thing funny, even though the plot itself might not be funny. Like any other actor, I don't think it would have worked with. Like he knew how to, because in this movie, in Sonatine, like he's a fucking psycho. He's a complete psychopath. And any other actor, I think, would have taken the psychopathic tendencies and kind of ran with them, but he understates all that, and it makes it scarier in a way. He's pretty fucking weird in this movie, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, he's playing frisbee with himself, and one of
Young
Russian
is
the
more.
roulette.
the obsession with the Russian roulette is that's a fun
That was
little
a
scene
crazy
there.
scene, like when they're shooting each other with like poppers, like right, like the Roman candles where they're shooting each other, but then he busts out a gun and he's shooting at people. I thought that was so interesting. Like his, and what makes it interesting is that it shows that this character's idea of play goes into violence. You know what I mean? Like for a lot of people, violence and play are two separate things. Like violence is the thing that I have to do when I'm threatened, and play is something I do when I'm being my normal self. But that scene with the Roman candles where he takes the gun out, it's like the Venn diagram becomes a perfect circle. And he's like, violence and play are the same thing to me. I don't see any different. It's all funny to me,
I've had
basically.
friends like that. One time
Hmm.
we took our mom's 22s out of their purses and ran into the woods and shot at each other.
Hmm.
And
That
Like you
rules.
do.
yeah, I have scars from chunks of tree going into my shoulder.
You know,
But
there's an iconic image in this movie that I don't actually think is in this movie, and you see it a lot. And correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about this. But when he's dreaming about um, playing Russian roulette and he dies, I don't think we ever see blood spatter come out of his
Nope.
head.
It
No.
comes out of the exit or the entry wound. That's what we see.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No. I mean, there's an image that goes around of Kitano in this movie that I feel like I haven't seen, which is exactly like the blood coming out of his head or something. I don't know. Maybe I
mhm.
just missed it. Maybe I blinked
No,
every
you're
single
absolutely
time.
No,
right because
I've
when I
seen
watched this, I was waiting for that specific scene. And when it happens, it the blood does spatter, but it's not that perfect shot of him
Hmm.
smiling and the blood coming out this way. The blood kind of goes this way and
Yeah.
it's a very short shot, but the focus is on the blood coming out of the entry wound.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
yeah.
Because kind of like you, I was familiar with that image before even watching this movie. So I was like, oh, well, I just spoiled myself that he's gonna, and it is technically a spoil. He does kill himself at the end, but that's not what happens there. So I
It
wonder.
does splatter everywhere when he actually
Yeah.
does it, but
Yeah. It wasn't the Bjork stalker, when he does that and it just stays in his head. You guys ever see that
You're
video?
no.
It's the most pathetic suicide I've ever seen in my entire life with a gun because
Yeah.
there's no exit wound really. It just goes and it's in.
Well,
That's it.
it's like it's got kind
Mm.
of a Bud Dwyer thing though, where there was a
Mm.
bunch of nose blood, if I remember correctly. Or maybe I'm
Yeah.
mixing up Bud Dwyer and the Bjork Stalker. But I feel
Um.
like they both had a bunch of nose blood when they did that.
Oh,
Yeah. The
that'd be
Bud
a
Dw- that
crazy shot.
that cascade of blood coming out of Bud Dwyer's holes has always stuck with me. I was like, oh
Yeah,
wow, that's
yeah.
really interesting that that's what
Yeah,
happened there.
those the videos for me were there was Bud Dwyer, there was the Bjork guy, and I brought it up on the show before, but the Russian soldier who got his neck cut open.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so he's got his head pushed down with a boot, and somebody takes a Bowie knife and just like sticks it like right here and
Hmm.
cuts out. And that'll like blood comes from strange places when you're being filleted.
Mm.
I got that video when I was searching on LimeWire, like Steve-O extreme stunts
Yeah,
or something.
yeah. It,
That's how I saw that back in the day.
everybody who's our age got that shit the same way. We were not looking for it. We were just like not even Googling at that point. Yeah, we were like
We were
on
asking Jeeves.
Kazaa.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I was just on Kazaa looking for System of a Down and it was like Russian soldier. Like what's this? And yeah, life changing. And then you bring all your friends over too. You're like, bro, landline, of course, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, dude, come over. Like, you got to see this shit.
I just
And
interrupted my internet to tell you to go and check this out. So
yeah,
once you hang up, you should in 40 minutes when you're able to watch this little clip, call me, tell me what you think.
but yeah,
Yeah.
dude, Sonatine, I I really like when I watch something like this and it's just so much what it is. It has no ambition to be anything other than what it is. Like the Yakuza, like the battles without honor or humanity kind of technical Yakuza shit, totally absent from this. It's a hangout movie for most of it that's like bookended by plot stuff. And I think it's cool that he does those bookends in a very abstract, artistic way.
Dude, the end massacre is so unsettling
Mhm.
because of how detached it is. And the whole movie is like pretty surreal. So it feels dreamy and it feels like one of those dreams you're stuck in where you know something bad is around the corner, but you're not entirely sure where you're at, so you don't know how to avoid it. Because you see the lights going off, all the gunfire up in the windows and shit. And you get little glimpses of him just being like Tony Montana mode with the
It's very
machine
cool.
gun.
It's
Mhm.
very
Yeah,
cool.
but you don't really see anything. You just see people shooting at each other and flashes, and then you see the other his Yakuza homie outside who's like looking up in the window and it's just like, oh shit, oh shit. And it's dark and it's one of maybe it's also I think the only scenes that take place in the dark are this one, the fireworks, and when they drown that dude.
Oh, that drowning scene was so tough for me. What I thought was going to happen, so like they're Yakuza, right? And they're trying to extort this dude who runs a mahjong like gambling parlor
Mhm.
and he won't have any of it. So they tie him up. They do like the whole like sexy rope thing with him, where it's like kind of hot. Uh and they put him on a crane and they lower the crane down into water and Kitano's character is like, let's do 2 minutes. And they do it and it lingers so long and you're like, oh fuck, that dude can't breathe. And then they bring him back up and he's still alive. He's like, oh, he's still alive? Let's do 3 minutes. But they
Yeah.
kill him. And but that's the whole thing, right? Oh, that shit made me so uncomfortable. I did not like that at all. I was like, what a horrible way to go. You're all tied up sexy style and you get fucking drowned. In
And
what
not
looks
even
like
in
very
piss.
it
Like
looks like very nasty water. Looks very gross. I
it
will
was
say,
beautiful though. All that gross water, like the shot, lingering shot on the water where like all the trashiness kind of looks like
yeah,
stars because it's really
yeah.
dark too. So
Mhm.
it's just like it looks like he's drowning in the night sky.
I will say also the girl, the psycho girl, right? Who was going to be raped and then gets saved by Katana because like this movie is a lot of vignettes that happen kind of between the major action on the beach as we said and Kitano sees this woman like being assaulted on the beach and like kind of doesn't want to intervene but the guy who's raping wants to fuck with him so he kills him, right? Just shoots him twice. Very cool scene. Um, that woman eventually, there's like this big rain scene, and she's running, and her boobs are like flopping around, and I was like, this is fucking badass. Those are some cool looking boobs. And then they get to a point, she takes her shirt off. Excellent pair. Like that's a nice
Certified Kino.
that's a good pair, right? When she took her shirt off, I was like, this movie fucking rocks.
I was like, oh, that's why it's called Sonatine.
Yeah.
Kitano's decisions, I think, as a director are so interesting and away from the norm of what somebody would typically anticipate from a director working in this genre. I think because of his background and the fact that, as far as I can tell, and I've read like a great deal on Kitano and his backstory and everything else, there doesn't really seem to be anything that would indicate he would become a director.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you're familiar with what he did before this, but he was part of a comedy troupe called The Two Beats, and he was Beat Takeshi. And it was essentially like a Rakugo, Abbott and Costello kind of live performance that he would do with his partner. And then somewhere along the way, he started getting cast in movies. So he's in a movie called Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. I believe it was his first dramatic role. And that movie has David Bowie in it and Tom Conti. And it's a great movie. It's terrific. The soundtrack to that is better than the movie itself. And that's from Ryuichi Sakamoto.
The goat.
Yeah, it's terrific. And eventually, somewhere along the line, he got cast to play like a serious, dark, brooding cop role, kind of like what they did to Robin Williams and Jim Carrey later on in their careers
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
Violent Cop. That movie was supposed to be directed by the guy who did Battle Royale, which I think the name of the director is Kinji Fukasaku.
Yeah.
Okay. And he had to quit that movie for some reason abruptly, just as they were about to get rolling on it. And Kitano was like, all right, well, I'll just direct the movie. I'll just do it. And so you get like a lighter flavor of Sonatine with that film, with that, even though he's using somebody's screenplay that was like written to be like a straight movie, straight cop film. And he's bringing his flourishes to that. I think he might have
Mm.
rewritten the script, and it's this cool experiment. Then he does Boiling Point, and it's kind of a similar plot to this movie, Sonatine. And with Boiling Point, it's a little different in that they have to go to the beach to go buy guns to extract revenge, but they're still going to the beach. So
I
you
love
have
that all
that.
these movies are like, how do we get to the beach?
No,
He
well, with the next movie, A Scene at the Sea, they literally just spend the whole movie at the beach. He's not in
Good.
that one though. He didn't direct. He didn't star in that one.
But he's still
That
at the
one,
beach.
they're absolutely at the beach. Every second of the film, they're at the beach.
he's the
That
OG
one's
Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
really, yeah, it's kind of that way. That movie's kind of whatever. And frankly, it's kind of a Woody Allen thing where it's like, are the movies without Takeshi as good as the movies with? And I think the answer more often than not is no, because he has
Mm.
just such a very powerful screen presence, regardless of whatever is happening in the movie. And not a lot has to happen in whatever scene he's in order to bring that. So I don't know. He's so interesting. He's such an interesting director. And he has a movie that just came out this year that's on Amazon Prime right now. It's only 60 minutes long. And it's
Mm.
another Yakuza film, but he plays it twice. Once in comedy, once dramatic. It's called Broken Rage. And the comedy is like very over the top, like it feels like it would be on a Japanese talk show in 1960. Some of it is so over the top.
They think that shit
Um,
is so funny.
yeah.
Dude, I'm glad you brought up talk shows though. Because in this movie, there are two instances of characters in cars with talk radio playing. And I thought that was very interesting. The first time it's Kitano and the guy who gets shot in the head, like they're driving, and while they're talking, there's like a Japanese comedian. And I don't know enough to know if this was like somebody who Kitano from his, comedy days would have known. But there's like a stand-up comic playing like while they're talking, and
It's
there's a laugh
Patrice
track.
O'Neill.
Yeah, so Patrice O'Neill is playing, and then there's another point where they're all it's like right after before they go to the beach, they're all like kind of hanging out and they're like sitting in a car and like one person's like laying in the back seat, but it's American talk radio that's playing then too. But I just thought that was interesting. Like I couldn't decipher obviously from the Japanese, but even from the English shit, it just seemed like it was just talk radio that was over these scenes happening. And I don't think I've ever seen that happen in a movie before, where like two main characters are driving and talking about plot relevant shit, and there's a track on the radio that is at times overtaking what they're saying that's just goofy nonsense. I thought that was cool.
Hmm.
That
No,
is cool. It's
yeah.
like Rush Limbaugh, like uh
Yeah.
like Pulp Fiction, except if they instead of talking about cheeseburgers, they were actually talking about, hey, we're gonna go and take this suitcase from these guys. What do you think is in the suitcase? And then on the radio, it's like
The
the
fucking Jews.
exactly.
The only other instance I can think of this is maybe in like Challengers. You have one character listening to talk radio, and there's kind of like Luca Guadagnino winking, I think, to right wingers, which is about Hillary Clinton's emails and the fucking scandal with that.
Oh,
It's like, oh,
really?
whoa, this is in a real movie. Interesting, and it's kind of like informing what a little bit of what that character is, a tad. But yeah, but that's the only time. I mean, it's kind of a dead medium. You're not going to find it, I think, too far into the future these days.
What, talk radio?
Yeah,
Hmm.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
People
Uh,
don't do that anymore.
have you looked at Hillary Clinton's emails? Have you seen those?
I have not. No.
They're fucking crazy, dude.
What is she emailing? Is it just
She's like,
like,
can we eat kids? Like all kinds of crazy shit.
oh wow,
They're like, bitch, this ain't Snowpiercer.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Okay,
did. I
well,
feel
can
like
we
I
put
downloaded a
everybody on the
batch of
train?
the Pizzagate emails back in the day, but I don't
Hmm.
think I ever saw Hillary's. I thought it was a lot of John Podesta talking about,
Oh,
oh,
Podesta for sure. Yeah.
we need to send out some hot dogs to the White House. We
No,
got to get
Hillary sent some shit that was like she what did she say? It was some shit that was like yeah, if we do the ritual, we got to make sure that we have enough.
Hmm.
Or like I don't know, whatever. She's evil. Doesn't matter. Whether she's satanic and eats kids or just is her, then it's all the same to me. But
She's trying to make sure they had enough pizza for everybody who was going to be at the ritual.
yeah, just like these emails where they're like, I need 60 boxes of pizza, extra kid. And you're like, and you can see this, and it's like, is there something going on? And but I will never in my life ever underestimate the lib capability to compartmentalize, to say the least. You know, it's like, oh no, that was just
What? No,
it was
it's
that
just
was
a regular pizza. What are you
it's just
talking? It's
it's just
crazy cheese
locker room
pizza.
talk, locker room talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot that I loved about this movie. I really like it. I'm trying to figure out like exactly what I'm trying to say, but with Sonatine, you no matter what's happening in the movie, you get the feeling that it is directed, right?
Mhm.
Um, I got this feeling with Mass State Lottery too. Like you can't watch Lo Mass State Lottery and not be like, "Oh, that's my guy. He's doing a thing. He's doing a thing here." Like it feels like there's a person who's behind it. And then there's like other movies where, and some of these movies are very, critically acclaimed, Oscar, whatever, but it doesn't feel like there's a presence behind them. And so it's a weird question, LowRes, but what's going on with that? Is it just leaning into your weirdness or how does that work?
Oh man, I've actually been thinking about this a lot recently because I feel like Honora winning Best Picture recently is a step towards trying to get closer to that. Not
Okay.
that Honora is like a special movie by any means. I didn't mind it. I didn't have it in my best of the year. But I look at that movie and I'm like, all right, well, this isn't a committee movie. This is from a guy who worked on the same level that I did for like 15 years, running around New York City shooting one film at least with like a camera like this. That's just a Chinese delivery takeout guy, and then just like a bunch of
That movie
Haitian
slaps, by the
immigrants giving
way.
them lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he like worked his ass off to get there, and it's kind of this new thing that we're looking at of, all right, well, that's what happened when you had a big budget, when you had like a
Right.
real budget. And people say, oh, Nora didn't have a big budget. It had a huge marketing budget because that's how they got the Oscar. It had $18 million that got them that Oscar.
God damn.
So I look at that movie and I'm like, all right, I think something is starting to change in terms of the general taste of things.
Hmm.
And to a greater degree, maybe we can look at politics and things like that in a similar way where people just want a more authentic feeling person to get behind, right?
Yeah.
Because the artifice of things is starting to wear on people a bit. Doesn't really seem to be happening in television. People still gobble that shit right up. Like people are talking about Severance season two, like it's a
I
masterpiece.
refuse to watch it. I refuse. I'm
I,
not
I
watching that
watched
shit.
the first season a year or two ago, and I thought, all right, this show's fine.
Hmm.
But I mean, that's the problem with a lot of TV shows or all TV shows is it is a committee. There's a writer's room. I think the exception is like White Lotus or maybe True Detective season one, right? You know,
Hmm.
HBO
Hmm.
will allow that method of creating things every so often if they
Yeah.
really have faith in the person behind it. But for movies, you know, sorry, what was the question to begin with? What is
Oh,
like?
just well, two things. The
Mhm,
first thing is that like when I saw a screenshot and they're pointing a gun at a baby goat, I was like, I knew I was right. I knew to stay away from this shit. Like you're trying to do this fucking bargain bin David Lynch nonsense at the end of your shit. Like, no, fuck. Like, they all break into a fucking what do you call it when flash mob? They do a flash. The
mhm.
bad guys doing a flash mob. Fuck that shit. My question was, is that when you watch the whether it's Takeshi Kitano or Takashi Miike or I guess white people too, there's a feeling of a person behind the thing that makes that happen,
Yeah.
right? And whether it's critically acclaimed or like Brett Ratner slop, whatever, there's another genre of movie that seems to follow rules correctly, but has no person behind it. And the question is now a little bit leading, but I'm just wondering about the difference between those two things.
I mean, I think it just comes down to what are the stakes? I mean, how many people are going to be potentially here at a loss if this doesn't go right or this doesn't hit in a particular way? It's that, it's ego, and it's confidence. But I think what makes any of that good or bad is just taste. If the
Hmm.
people who are involved have good taste, and that can be interpreted any number of ways,
Harvey
then
Weinstein, for example. Yeah.
he had great taste in women, you know. But I think that's what it comes down to because you can point to probably just as many examples of committee projects that do work out that are enjoyable, or maybe you're not going to get that like deeper.
Like what
This
though?
is
Like
like what?
what's an example of something by committee that slapped?
Hmm. I mean, I think there's a lot of 20th century uh, movies or TV shows that you could probably point to that would fit the rubric of being by committee. I think the problem is really who is making up those committees now
Mm,
and what
mm,
is
mm,
driving the decision making, right? Because
mhm,
let's just say like a show like MASH, right?
mhm.
MASH is not like a complex show. It just had a job to do every single week, which is give you these characters in a situation, crack some jokes, and then that's that. And a lot of people considered MASH like the best show ever up until we
It's a
got
very good
cable.
show. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a solid show. People don't really talk about it now. It doesn't really appeal to anybody youthful now for whatever one reason or another. Korean War's over. Um, but you can cite examples like that, and there's tons of movie examples from the early 20th century
Hmm.
that would certainly fit that. I just watched the King Vidor adaptation of The Fountainhead, which was certainly done by committee. It was a Warner Brothers production from the 1940s, I think 1949. Terrific picture. Ayn Rand hated it and wrote the script because of what they did with her script or whatever. That might be another example. I think just the people you have working at these studios are, and this is kind of like a boring answer because many people have said it, are just business people first and foremost. They don't really have the artistic taste to navigate or steer the ship that they're on. Like I think David Zaslav is a prime example of this because he's
Hmm.
currently running Warner Brothers, but he's running Warner Brothers from the position of being like, all right, well, we absorbed Warner Brothers. We as in Discovery, as in the Discovery Channel, And you've seen how that then shapes a lot of their corporate decisions when it comes to HBO Max or the films that they greenlight or their marketing campaigns. And it's like none of this is paying respect to Warner Brothers of 1930 something to 2010 or so.
Hmm.
This all
Hmm.
feels like you're thinking with discovery in mind, or you're thinking, and it's just like it's not going to be compatible here. You're going to wind up killing what makes this. And that's what we're running into, I think, with a lot of the streaming movies and shows, and they're not looking to cause any sort of stir and deviate and try and get
Right,
experimental. Everything's a sure bet.
right. Whereas, like, I'm assuming movies like The Rock were made by committee. Like somebody was watching
Yes.
The Rock and being like, "No, we should make the missile hit him in the chest."
So, hmm, I think with something like that, the difference might be, yes, it's made by committee, but who's the producer? Jerry Bruckheimer. What did
Yeah,
he do?
a
Well, he was
goat.
working on like Top Gun. He did like a bunch of movies in the 80s. Like
Him
he
and
had a
David
good,
Silver were fucking rocking.
yeah. He had like a solid track record behind him. He had the experience. He knew what worked. And then he picked out Michael Bay, who was probably like a music video director or something at the time, gave him that movie, Armageddon. Um, and there was an ability to be like, all right, I know that the stew I'm cooking up, all these flavors are going to complement each other. And instead, I think what has actually happened is you have some money people, and you've had over like the last 10 years, and maybe this is starting to go away, people with social progress
Hmm.
blinders on to go, well, wait a minute, we got to think about doing this, we got to think about doing that. And
Right,
now they're cleaning house because they realize actually this comes at a direct cost, like a
right,
literal cost. In the case
right.
of somewhere like Paramount, for example, they only just sent out an email maybe like 3 weeks ago that they were going to start disbanding their DEI programs.
Hmm.
And what had been the case before then, CBS, which used to be like the number one network in America, they had rules at CBS that the writers' room had to be X amount of these people, X amount of these women.
Hmm.
And over the last 4 or 5 years, you've seen fewer and fewer brand new shows greenlit as a result of that. There's not really a whole lot of progression as a network, creatively speaking. And you wind up with shows like NCIS being on season 29, 30,
Hmm.
31, 32, 33, until LL Cool J or whoever the hell the star of it is says, I want 15 million for this season. And then they go, oh, okay, this show's canceled. Anyway, moving on. What do we got? The NCIS spinoff? Is Chris O'Donnell available? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Let's get him. And they
But I
just,
mean, you can even watch like movies like Time Cop or Under Siege 2.
mm-hmm,
They felt like there were people behind those movies. Stargate. I'm trying to think of other movies from my like GoldenEye.
yeah.
Like GoldenEye was a really good movie. And
Some of it too is I think when people hype up film too much, it's not the look of film. I had this thought while watching Sonatine. I was like, you could recreate these shots. What the fuck does film have up on digital? It's about those cameras were so fucking heavy. Or you had the reels, you had limited film. And a lot of that just forced people to think whether they were the best at it or whether they were just conscious of the fact, it made people think about the shot. Like, what
That's
all is going into this shot? What are the people doing in the background? Where is the focus at? Do y'all know how you deliver in the lines? Let's rehearse this a little bit. Okay, yeah, everything looks good. Let's go.
right. And I think that's actually what people aren't getting to is like, all right, let's say you were just some hired hand on Sonatine or Time Cop or whatever it might be in the year 1993 or 1994. Well, you probably have many years, if not decades, behind you working on film sets, getting firsthand experience working and understanding how some of these things flow. So your experience you're approaching that new project with is much more informed than what I think is going on today, where people can be detached. people don't even have to be in the room in the case of like somebody like John Carpenter to direct whatever it is that they're doing. And so, all right, well, if that's the case for one of the most important positions on the film set, well, what about all these other people? Are they just bringing in random college kids who were, gifted a job because they're somebody's nephew or whatever? Um, and then the higher up positions, same deal. You don't really have to have any sort of firsthand experience in film or dealing with films in order to work at one of these major studios. And these are the people calling the shots. These are the people that are involved in making creative choices on these movies. And so what you wind up getting is something that is very flat feeling.
Mm,
That
yeah.
makes sense. That's
Has
like
there been a movie recently that hasn't felt flat?
Hmm. Bridget Jones 4. I just enjoyed that quite a lot on Peacock. It's my number two movie of 2025 so far. No, no, there's definitely some good movies out there, but movies that don't feel flat. I mean, that's a little difficult to think
When did
about.
they start feeling flat? Was it because for me, I would just say like the last movie, kind of like mainstream, sort of was The Lord of the Rings. Like I thought that movie was like all three of those movies were great and
Hmm.
awesome. And then I feel like everything, like nothing measured up to Return of the King, Fellowship of the Ring, whatever. Like everything felt shitty after that. And that was like 20 years ago, I think.
Yeah. I think a big element that came into play is having a high technical quality be available to everybody, right?
Mm,
So once you're working with whatever the Ari Alexa digital standard quality is, everybody's using the same camera, then it's easier to remove certain flaws and what have you. I think that comes into play a bit. Like you don't have to be as selective, like what you were saying, Kelby. And I'm kind of honestly a recent convert to film being a superior medium,
mm,
just from dealing with it briefly on a couple of different things, having to understand, okay, well, what are we looking at here versus what are we looking at if we're just using a simple DSLR camera or we're using a Black Magic or so, whatever it might be. My opinion was pretty agnostic. Like, it doesn't really matter as long as you can shoot and you know how your composition is, what your lighting is. That's what's most important. That is what is most important. But I do think, not to be a snob and not to be kind of hackneyed, but yeah, I completely agree with that. I think when the stakes are, well, if you fuck up the shot, 2 minutes of film is still like at least $80 to develop. How much is it going to cost to buy it? Probably another $80. All right, so we're talking about using up 2 minutes of film. That's $160. That's going to add up very quick, especially if people don't know what they're doing. Um, I think where it started to go wrong, where it started to feel flat en masse, is somewhere around 2015.
hmm
There's some good movies that are in the early 2010s that do start to like kind of go in that streaming movie look direction of things. But I don't think that was the norm just yet. I think right around 2015, 2016, that's when we started to see that. When regular movies started getting nudged out of theaters and superhero movies or whatever the other popular genres were around that time started filling up whatever the times were at the cinema, that is when we started to see this sort of funneling in one direction of what the visual look of movies was going to start being. And there's some, I just pulled up my list of like 2024 movies that I watched. Some movies don't feel flat. Like I watched, um, I would say actually Megalopolis, even though that's digital as hell, that
hmm
doesn't feel flat because you have a guy like David Lynch does where he's making his own effects and whatnot. And that's kind of the vibe that you have with Coppola and Megalopolis, where some of the effects are goofy, some of them look good, some of them don't look good. It's a very personal touch. The Brutalist I thought looked great. Maybe my mind will change when I watch it on my TV here. But even movies that I did have a high opinion of, like Challengers or The Substance, do have that sort of like gloss feel.
Right.
Uh,
And like one of my favorite scenes from Sonatine is when they're dumping the body after the bar shootout. There's that guy who dies in the car, right? they're driving and he's like kind of nodding off and he eventually dies. And there's this great shot where it's not even three-quarters of the frame, but like there's just this sliver of sun over these dunes that they're pulling a body, like they're like kind of carrying this body out to dump him. And at the very top of the screen, you see like two heads, and then one head disappears, and the other head disappears, and it's just kind of black for a second. And then you see two heads kind of reappear.
Mhm.
I found that fascinating to watch. And you don't see that in movies, right? Like just film is a method of capturing human activity, right? And if it's become a method of capturing artifice, right? Like of drama, of capturing, here's a guy and here's another guy, and they disagree about this, that, and the other, and we're going to watch them fight or whatever. But Sonatine recognizes that it's really just there to capture landscape and people moving through landscape. And I just thought that one shot was really beautiful. And you don't see that. Like, what movie can you think of that would take a 45 seconds to a minute of them dumping this body where most of it's totally black to just, see two heads bobbing on this landscape that's way up high in the frame. I don't, I,
You know what I think that is? So kind of like what I was talking about earlier with Kitano bringing comedian sensibilities to his directing.
mm,
Kitano is also a painter, and you don't get any of his paintings in this movie. You do in his other films. He likes to sneak them in. I think that's his painter sensibilities, appreciating landscapes and what the just the visual outlook of whatever the scenery might be, and trying to absorb take that in.
yeah,
Um, and that might be another issue as well, is that a lot of people have honed in interests that relate to film and only to film, and they don't draw inspiration from other mediums.
ooh, I like
Mm.
that.
So I think this happens a lot, and there's a great quote from somebody. God damn. I feel like I was watching an interview with Peter Greenaway, who directed The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, and Belly of an Architect, and all of these visually magnificent, just stunning movies from the 1980s and early 1990s. And he was the one who made the point of, filmmakers should be drawing inspiration from, I'm butchering the quote here, from like paintings, from art,
Yeah,
and not from other movies.
yeah. David Lynch was a painter.
Yeah. And I think
He,
that's why his
yeah,
his work is so distinct, and his decision making is not what you can predict, you know. I
right.
think when you've seen thousands of movies, it's very easy to want to be like, I did this with Mass State. I kind of feel like I got this out of my system with Mass State Lottery. It's very easy to have these movies you love and these moments you love for movies and want to just like honor them in some way. But then
Mhm.
people just continue to do that. And then they think this is what filmmaking is. And they
Mhm.
get a very narrow perspective on what they're doing.
I like that. I like that a lot. I like this idea that movies are supposed to do something. No, because I'm coming at that from a different angle because I write, right? So I put out these books, and there is that same idea that books should do X, Y, Z. Why? Why? Why is that necessary? Like, why do we have to do the same things that have been done before? You saw something, you thought it was cool, and now you're trying to kind of replicate that. I saw something in a different medium, and now I'm trying to replicate that because I don't know how to make movies or draw anime, you know?
Mhm.
I do really think I bring this up a few times on this show, but um, I remember being younger and my favorite band being System of a Down and getting a issue of Revolver with an interview with them where they're going to go over like their favorite musical artists. And of course, as a kid, you're like, oh, fuck, I love System of a Down. Let's see what they're listening to that makes this shit so great. And it's all like, you know, Stevie Nicks and random Turkish ballads, and you're like, wait, where's the cool rock music that I love? The answer is that you the truly unique, interesting stuff has to come from a different place. If you're a filmmaker, you should be a painter first. If you're a writer, you should be, I don't know, gay. I don't know, dude. Like, but I do think that people have to come from different angles. I think the worst artists in any medium are the files, right? Philes, right? The cinephiles are going to make the worst movies. The the book files are going to make the worst books. Like you have to kind of be detached from it first
Now,
and see it.
pedophiles can make some all right movies from time to
They
time.
Well, the track record is pretty strong.
yeah,
I gotta
Rosemary's
admit.
Baby, it's good shit, man.
Oh man, I just put that together. The baby was some heavy inspiration there.
hmm hmm But yeah, no, I think yeah, I just in movie like something that got me interested in movies recently was the Harmony Korine baby invasion.
Oh yeah, I just recorded a show on this today. I'm very curious to because I know you guys were high on aggro drift, and it made
Yeah.
me like reconsider like am I because I went to the movies to go see that. I killed a bunch of time in the city, like 40 minutes from where I was staying, and I was like, what the hell can I do? All right, well, I'll go see aggro drift tonight at 10:30 p.m. What am I going to do until then? I'll go watch I Saw the TV Glow, the trans movie, you
Yeah.
know? And when
I didn't
aggro
see
drift
that one.
ended, I was like, I just waited the whole day to see this. And
Right.
I laughed during it. I did laugh many times. I was like, what did I just see here? I don't understand. And
Yeah.
then Baby Invasion, I watched that last night. I'm assuming you guys have seen it.
Dude, it
You can watch it. I saw the trailer.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, what the shit?
Yeah.
I've not seen the full movie, but I saw the trailer, and what excited me about that is that it does kind of seem to me that there's this creeping AI shit that people don't want to necessarily confront. And Harmony Korine is always just directly confronting the technology that's in front of him. And I think that's really cool. Um, but it also, from the trailer, not from the movie, um, it did seem like oddly enough, because it's so AI, it feels like a person making movies. And
Yeah,
Well,
because
does
it's got that playing around element that's
yeah,
so
yeah.
crucial. Like
Does that
mhm.
the
hold up through the movie?
I'll tell you right now, I did not have a favorable opinion of Baby Invasion. But here's what I'll say is you're right about that in that I think even when Harmony Korine is so far off the reservation of what you expect from him, it still feels like Harmony Korine. You can still recognize it's Harmony
It's a
Korine.
person.
And yeah, then this movie's like a Twitch stream mixed with a PlayStation 1 video game and I don't really I don't know, just like a home invasion
Man, I'm
simulation.
about to watch this shit as soon as we get off the call, bro. Like, I'm
yeah,
super
this
stoked.
sounds tight.
6.99.
That
It's
sounds tight
it's
to me. But like people, again, Sonatine, you get to the end of the movie and he's gonna get revenge on all these Yakuza who've set him up. And it's set up where there's a shot of him just firing this machine gun juxtaposed with like the outside shot of the window lighting up, juxtaposed with like a shot of a bunch of dudes, pretending to die. It's very uh artificial, right?
Mhm.
But it feels like a person made those decisions, right?
Yeah.
And I think that I guess how that relates to baby invasion, which is a funny thing to say, is that again, it feels like even though this is all AI generated slop, a person made the choice to make it look that way rather than a committee. So it's kind of person versus committee.
Yeah, and I don't I wouldn't even say Baby Invasion's AI slop because you can see that he's got a team of young guys that are designing things for him in a very specific way. Like the AI in his movies does not feel. Like it's not thought out. Even though I would
Mm-hmm.
say that he's a director who's kind of aimless with his movies. Like
Sure.
there's never like I don't think he's ever had a message in one of his movies, really.
No, no,
Seriously.
no,
It's
no,
just
no.
let's play this situation out with these characters and we'll
What's the
figure out how
message of
to
Spring Breakers? His best movie. It's like
Spring break forever.
Spring
That's
Break Forever.
forever.
Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
the
I'm so
message
excited to
is
put
say
that
no
back in
to
theaters.
COVID regulations. That's the message of Spring
Oh
Breakers.
yes. Yeah. I'm gonna be back in the cinema to see that in IMAX or whatever the hell they're doing with that for the reissuing. I was thrilled to read that. I remember going to see that in the theater in 2013 and the
It
people who
fucked me
walked
up,
out,
dude.
they did not get what they were signing up for. Like they were like that I don't understand what that was all about. And I
No,
loved it.
I love that movie, dude. We got to talk about it. Are you going to Seoul?
It kind of is a little too soon.
Mm.
I want to. I've been very lucky with the meme coins, and I could afford doing it.
Oh, you did
It's
you get on that fart coin?
Farcoin was done by the time I got in
My
there. I
retardio is not looking great right now.
you know what was a real hit for me was there was this fake Baron Trump coin after Trump
I
launched
wanted
his
to get
coin.
on that. I fucking was too late for the Baron Trump coin.
Some dude on X, I gotta give this guy a bunch of credit, was like, the developer of the Melania coin, who I think actually turned out to be this guy. I don't know if you guys have seen him. He's some like strange ginger glasses nerd freak fucking kid who got into a scam
Shut up.
with the Argentinian president.
Yeah.
This dude. Um,
Yeah, he's one of our haters.
I believe he might have been behind this fake Baron Trump coin, and somebody was like, "Seems like it's from the same team, but you know the risk." And I was like, "I know the risk." And I put all my money into it, and that motherfucker went up and through the roof, and
I
I was
remember
like,
when
"Oh my
when
god!"
when dollar sign Baron was going crazy, dude.
Yep, yep. And I think it went. I think it died when I pulled my money out. I think
Yeah.
I might have accidentally
You
You
done
rugged
it.
with
killed it.
everybody else.
Dude, let me tell you, it also, and this is like crypto nerd shit, but like Solana had like you gotta buy one token to buy these fake play tokens, right?
Right.
Like any casino, you gotta use the chips.
Hmm.
Um, Solana had a wait time for transfers. Solana's the coin that you would use for those of like 7 hours for whatever reason. It was right after Trump launched his coin. And I ran out of Solana to be able to like withdraw my money. So I'm watching the money go higher and higher and higher. I'm like, I'm trying to fucking like force it. And eventually somehow I did it, pulled the money out, and then the coin dies right afterward. So I think it was because of me. And boy, that was like the best day ever. That was amazing. That type of
Yeah.
hit. I
That
should have
shit.
retired there because I
That
lost
that's
like
why
10
people
grand
keep doing
after.
this shit. Let me look at my
Yeah.
moonshot right now. See what I'm
Yeah.
at right now. I know I have Floyd AI
Hell
and
yeah.
Retardio. Let me see what I got.
I
Oh
The
respect
yeah.
that move so much, though. Every time I hear about people who are just like, hold, bro. I'm like, you're stupid.
hold
Uh,
into the fucking ground. Hold until you're destitute. I've done it several times. As soon as I hit big on that, and then I just lost nonstop after that. And then I hit big again, and then I lost like pretty bad. And then I hit again, and now I'm done. I'm out. I'm out.
He
So
says now.
for right now, yes.
it's
Like
like now I'm
I've
going
had
to Seoul.
situations.
He's like, dude, I put everything on faggot coin and I don't know what to do now.
I've
But
had
wait,
situations where I'm like, I've quit, I'm done, and then later that night I've lost $2,000, and I'm just like, you fucking idiot, you fucking stupid idiot. You could have done so much with that $2,000, you idiot. And I just hate myself too much. So now I'm
but
like,
that
I'm
2000
good.
could have turned into
Exactly.
30K,
That's the bait. But
40K.
I can't. I can't do it anymore. I can't. It's so dangerous. But hitting big, it's like, all right, well now I can actually like make a project comfortably and not have to like use the money that I'm surviving on this week if I want to maybe do that. But as far as like Soul goes, you know, it would be really cool, but I would have to like go by myself because it's like too short a notice to be like, hey, Hans, you want to, quit your job and just go to Korea for a couple of days and present the movie and hopefully accept an award. I think it would be, I don't know. I really do want to go, but It's tight timing, so it's kind of up in the air at the moment.
Mm. I hope he can make it. Seoul's cool, man. It's cool.
I went in 2018 for
Hmm.
7 or 8 days, and it was a fun time. It was actually pretty surprisingly easy to navigate.
Where'd you go?
I Gangnam.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I have to say, I gotta admit, not to be a snob, it was a little dirtier and poorer seeming than I was expecting. It's kind of like it reminded me a bit of America in the 1990s, which I actually like that. I
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
the buildings, the technology, and everything was dated back like 20 years extra. But after that, I was like, yeah, Korea's cool. All right. And I was like tuckered out, but we did 2 trips back to back, and it was Korea and then Japan for a week. And then Japan was just like, oh my God, I got to stay
Super
here
tight.
forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like my first
Yeah.
day in, I'm like, I got to figure out how I can live here right now. This is amazing.
Well, you can, because apparently you can buy like a fucking 1,200 square foot 2-story house for $15,000.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw
So,
that too. I saw it's always some dude from like Denmark. It's some Danish
yeah.
guy finds a
Hey,
warehouse.
welcome to this traditional Japanese home.
Mm.
Only costs $8,900. I feel like that shit's gonna come with like a fucking grudge though, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's a
Yeah.
there's a weird ring girl that's gonna come with that house. And I mean, I still do it though.
I feel like you
Yeah,
have
a
to.
house for
Just
eight
because I'm
grand.
just because I'm brazy like that, you know? Like,
Well, what happened in that movie? Like, there's a hand that comes out of your hair when you go take a shower. Just don't go
yeah,
take a
what?
shower.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
And if the hand comes out, just like dap that shit up. Just be like, all right, cool, go back.
Hey, what's up, head hand? You go to you like when you lock your hands behind your head, leaning back, it's like another set of hands comes out to grab them. You're like, oh yeah, well this is kind of nice.
Mm.
Kind of cool. Yeah. One comes out and grabs, like a hand comes out of your pubes and grabs your
Now
dick.
you're
You're like,
trying
oh
to you're
shit.
not trying to suck your own dick anymore. You're trying to give yourself a hand job, but still curling and
Fuck, dude.
still pill bugging.
I'd rock with it, dude. I don't care.
They'd probably be extra bitter against Americans too for what we were talking about earlier. Is little remarks like, "We made your culture with a nuclear bomb," things like that.
Yeah, they might not love that, but truth hurts, baby. It sucks, but you know,
The house
Akira,
set.
one of the best movies of all time, but it wouldn't have happened if
It's true.
we didn't.
No, they'd still be stuck with fucking Ozu. Boring, boring.
Gay.
How many times can you watch Good Morning or Seven Samurai? Oh, great.
I want to see a picture of the mushroom cloud, and it's just text. It's like, "You're welcome."
Just wear a shirt like that around Tokyo. That'd be good.
New, you know what? We need a new agitator merch ideas. That's a good one.
You're
Absolutely.
welcome.
I should
No,
just get
it's the picture from Grave of the Fireflies where the girl has like the mud rice cake.
Mm.
Like, you're welcome.
They got pissy about Oppenheimer's poster art, didn't they? And somebody like, I feel like one of the official accounts put out like a 9/11 thing to retaliate.
It's like it doesn't like we don't care like that.
Yeah, don't we do that all the time? We
It
had like
didn't it
20
didn't
fucking nine
annihilate
We
eleven
did
movies.
like
10
9/11
Family
did
Guy
not
seasons,
yeah,
Yeah.
9/11 did not annihilate a significant fraction of our population. We don't care like that. It's just when we think about 9/11, we're like, ooh, that was a rough day. People kind of really ramped up that 9/11 shit too. Like getting upset about it. It was a little weird.
I think we should get more upset
I,
about. I feel like
I
we should.
thought
I feel
I
like we
thought
should
we were
get
pretty
amped and pissed off and like really angry about it. But
About
I'm in the
9/11?
minority on that. Yeah.
Like in what way?
yeah,
In what way?
in like a racist way and like a killed
Wait, no, I'm back on
Well, we got to
board.
figure out
Okay.
who really did 9/11 first before
Bush
We
we
already
did
bitch
it.
about it.
know.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we already
my
know.
my 9/11 take is it was Bush and we should kill all Muslims.
That's the perfect. That was a typically average normal person's 2004 opinion. Nobody would ever challenge that. you know? I
Hmm.
Hmm.
think that's all American.
Yep. We should just keep on bombing them. And Bush did it.
I do think to
Bombing
some
random
degree,
people.
how we impacted their culture and they kind of, I don't
Culture,
know.
by the way.
Yeah.
Culture.
They got kind of warped from it and they changed as a result and they almost like admire aspects of our culture and they've processed it and then spat it back out. I feel like we've kind of done that too with 9/11 in some sense. Kind of like the inward, like the reflexive apologetic nature that American culture took on basically 2.5 to 3 years after it happened.
Sure.
I don't know. I've had a lot of thoughts about like 9
No,
11
keep
and
going. No,
culture. And
this is super interesting. But I
I
feel
mean,
like
I
you
don't know.
stopped halfway.
I'm just freewheeling it at the moment. I really haven't like spoken any thoughts out loud about these kinds of things. It's still like wheels turning in my head. I don't know. I think 9/11 is just like a very interesting subject for anything. And I think it's something that we've kind of allowed it to fall into the context of being a joke because of things like Family Guy and what have you. And
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting.
Bro, I
It's
feel like you're
interesting.
about to cook and you keep stopping. And I'm
Well,
like, dude,
because
just
I
keep
don't know,
cooking.
I don't have like a bridge to go to. Like I have a bridge, but I don't know where it's going to. Really, is what I mean. I don't know.
Hmm.
I got to think about it. I got to think about things
There
before I say
was
something.
there was something primally activated during that because I remember feeling the rage. And I mean, living in Texas, we don't have like we're not brought up with the highest opinion of New Yorkers,
Hmm.
but it was like, I don't know, you think of America as like this big boiling pot, but we do have our own little, symbols, like national symbols. And some of that symbolism being taken out kind of it speaks to like the the primal, like, speaks to the American spirit in a way that it gets it really riled up. It's like, oh, whoa, hold on a minute. You had like Southerners being like, whoa, what the fuck now? What?
Hmm.
It's wartime, baby. It's like it was New York. I
Yeah.
thought,
I look back at that, and that's really like the last time that I think universally people were behind America. I feel like, all right, we know who the enemy is, or we thought we did. I don't know. And we're all kind of like, all right, we got attacked. We're not going to argue about it. We got attacked. And that
Right.
doesn't exist anymore. It's kind of like this reflexive, not humbleness, but it's this sort of, it's Takeshi Kitano. I think we got to be like Takeshi Kitano, where it's like, we got to look cool before anything else. Let's make sure we look cool. Let's not
Yeah. Yeah.
self-deprecate.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got to look
mm,
cool. We got to keep that veneer right there in order to do what we can do. And then, we'll figure it out in a different way, or maybe we'll view the problems here, the concerns here in a different way. But let's keep that baseline intact. And we don't have that. I mean, we're kind of getting that back now. We're kind of building back better, really. But we haven't had that for a long time. And it's sort of the comedian's nature to poke fun at yourself or
Right.
um, you know, damn, there's a word that's just it's in my head, but it's not coming out. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out in real time.
Self-deprecate or
No, no, no. I don't know. I'll think of it later. Don't worry about it. But that's
no.
essentially the gist of it is I think the idea of it being we got to protect what our image has been and not be so arrogant to assume that we can now break this down in a way where we can analyze our weaknesses publicly and confront
Mm-hmm.
each other. You know what I mean?
No, I like that. I like that. I fuck with that. I fuck with that. Here's what I'm hearing from what you're saying is that America has always been an exporter of cool, like cool shit. And what I really like about this is that you're pinpointing 9/11 as the point where somebody kind of tripped us in the cafeteria
Mhm.
and we look stupid. And we've been kind of aesthetically on the back heel since then, trying to get back to a point where we look cool again. And that's not nothing. It's not it's not insignificant to say that like we got to go back to being the arbiters of what is cool in media, and we haven't done that yet. I actually think that might be a fucking huge point, actually, about everything that we're talking about, right? Like
We
everything.
underrate it. I think a lot of millennials and Gen Z really doesn't even know. Gen Alpha won't know. But
Hmm.
that was a turning point in so many different ways that because it has been, you know, shrunk down to a Family Guy joke,
Hmm.
we don't think about it. We don't think about it that much. We've had conversations on movies before where it's like, why hasn't anyone done a topic on 9/11 for a film like now? You had a lot
Hmm.
right out the gate, right after
Hmm.
it happened. You had the Oliver Stone movie. There was some
Right.
really bad Charlie Sheen, Whoopi Goldberg 9/11 in an elevator movie that I'm
Hmm.
sure is a joy to watch. I'll see it eventually someday. But people don't have an interest in tackling current events like they used to in the
Right.
1980s and the 1970s. All the President's Men, Star 80. You're dealing with things that happened only a couple of years before, and people are making movies on these
Right.
big historic events. We don't do that now. That might be part of it. I think it's an insecurity with a lot of
Well,
modern creatives.
no, for sure. And like, but what you're saying is so cool because like what you're saying is that like when 9/11 happened, because before 9/11, we were fucking Predator, right?
Mm,
Arnold Schwarzenegger, fucking big muscles, zero thought. Like, what were those guys doing in the Peruvian jungle? Why were they there? Nobody asks those questions, right?
that's right.
And so, like, 9/11 hits, and all of a sudden it's introspection. So, what you're saying is that the curse that happened to America in 2011, and that could be rolled out into all the DEI, like it's all fractally more intense instances of self-reflection, right?
Yeah,
That was 2001, dog.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is like from 2001 on, right? Like it just keeps rolling out. Like 2001 made us take a step back and be like, wait, what are we doing? And the key to what made America great before that was that we didn't do that at all. We did not introspect at all. It was all big muscles, big tits, explosions, we're the king. And then 9/11 hit, and then people started being like, wait, are we like this bad imperial force that's. And whether or not that has merit or not, I think not. But whether it does or not,
I would say maybe it does have merit, but it doesn't matter. That would be my stance. Because I'm sure you can make that argument if you're on that position. I've heard people make that position
right?
concretely and like in a way that would be persuasive, but my feeling is it doesn't matter.
No, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Like we're saying the same thing because it doesn't
yeah,
matter in terms of if we didn't do it, somebody else would,
hmm
right?
exactly.
So it's like, but that self-reflection eventually, as soon as you self-reflect, as soon as you see yourself in the mirror, that mirror becomes an addiction, and you keep looking in it, and you keep being like, how can we further deconstruct what we're doing uh, to make sure that that doesn't happen again? And what you've pointed out is that 9/11 is that deep psychic wound that just turned us into this. Now we have severance,
Yeah,
basically.
It all culminates
Like
to Severance.
9/11 happened, and now we have severance.
Now there's the dance sequence in Severance with the
Yeah,
black gay
yeah,
boss and the
yeah,
marching band, and that's what
yeah.
we've got. And we wouldn't have gotten that maybe on the other timeline. And I think people have a much easier time of registering this as it relates to Nagasaki and the nuclear bombs with Japan. You
Hmm.
know, we can easily point to how things did change. And Nabiko Obayashi, one of my favorites here,
Hmm.
he was obsessed with that. He was obsessed with this is how culture was, and I want to have people remember that. I got to remind people that this is what Japan was before then. And
Hmm.
many of his movies have that little sprinkle of right before the war, the bomb, and then all the stuff that immediately follows, which is often perverted and weird and it's experimental and it's strange. But that like sense of what it was before,
Hmm.
he never let go of in any of his films. And in fact, he probably became more obsessed with it as he went on in his career. You take a look at his final movies, and it's really deeply focused on many aspects of that. So I think, nobody's really tackling that as a subject that I've seen in an artistic form. I've seen some people do YouTube videos on it or things that are
Yeah.
related to it. I'll tell
Right.
you one of the most interesting pieces of art that I've watched in like the last 5 years or so was a YouTube series about Bill Cosby raping women and his deal with Coca-Cola and how Coca-Cola was trying to usher out new Coke around the same time. And it's not really related, but it's just like he had a deal with Coca-Cola, and we're seeing these two timelines and how they converge. And somebody just thought this was an interesting idea for a documentary. I think it's called Cosby's Cola War. And I just found that so fascinating and weird and autistic that this dude would think like this would be great for a three-part documentary. And these are the victims. And then Coca-Cola is undergoing this transformation as a company while this is all happening. And Ghost Dad then happens, and they paid for that
I
movie. And
love that movie.
he's
It's
not
a great
making like
movie.
any points with it. It's just giving you this timeline and how they mirror each other. I don't know. I don't know. I think there's a lot interesting that is ripe for storytelling as the aughts have kicked off. And maybe we'll get there soon. Maybe we'll start to get there soon where people do start to begin to feel brave again to tackle more current events and aren't like, well, it might be tacky if Trump is in the movie as or people have these intrinsic
Hmm.
fears of dating something. And I think if that's what you're leading with is like, I want to change the moment we're in. If you're leading with that, then yeah, we'll date it in a bad way. Like a movie like Bombshell doesn't really do anything for you. And it's about the Fox News scandal. The Apprentice, pretty good movie, pretty interesting movie.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
Although there's seeds of, unfavorable elements or whatever in there, it's still, I think, a good movie. I think getting back to that, just having the confidence in whatever the atmosphere is that you're living in is the first step in being able to make good art en masse.
Bars. That's a good note to end it on.
Yeah, that's why I was being quiet. I thought that was a great rant
Yeah,
to end the show.
yeah. I didn't have any better follow up. Yeah.
Completely unrelated. Kelby, I love how your cam is like campfire tonight. It reminds me of stories around the campfire, the glow, the
Oh yeah.
pulsating warmth.
I was trying to figure out what's a good you know, related effect to go with the thematic content here. But the best would have been like a flowery shirt and a beach behind me. And I didn't have that,
Yeah.
so campfire was the.
Get a red Tommy Bahama with fish pattern, maybe.
I'm sure you're familiar with these things.
Oh, yeah. I got one, I think, right here.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. This one's on its way out, though. It's dying. By the
Oh
way,
shit.
these are the,
Like
RIP.
that.
These are like the most clutch for $2,000 filmmaking. These will solve so many problems. Let me tell you. Oh, shit. Yeah. Now mine's just like going off.
It's gonna start doing the like siren,
Yeah.
the the cop
The
lights and
cop
shit.
car one. Let me see if I can get. We got a tube here.
Nice.
Hmm.
There we go. That's more like it.
God damn.
very, very fun.
There's all kinds of lighting shit. That's how you know we're real filmmakers.
Yes, this is master filmmaking course. This is lighting and cinematography 101. Just just directly shine the light into the camera for a perfect shot. I learned that from Kitano.
How many lights would do you have in like a typical shot?
I would say usually one or two. You like to have like a primary light, and then I like to use a lot of color, so I'll bring out these guys, and usually like, all right, well, I want like how my face is green right now. Let's do a little bit of that, but it kind of depends on what lens you're working with, or what kind of camera you're working with. Like if I'm shooting with a Sony, those tend to handle low light environments pretty well, and so you don't have to use as much. But I've been working with, we just shot this movie Disorderly back in November, and I was using a professional cinema camera for that and some vintage lenses, and they typically do not handle low light well. So you have to bring out like a big dog kind of light and go from there. So it would vary, it depends on what kind of environment you're working in. But I haven't used more than three lights, I don't think, as in like two brick lights and like a real light with a stand and everything.
This is actually all really fascinating to me. I could,
Me too.
like,
Yeah, I'm just listening.
I would obsess over fucking with lights for every
Yeah.
shot. We were talking about earlier. Dave and I were riffing on how he's more Takashi Miike, I'm more Tsukamoto, just because I think leftover meth habits. I'm like, I just get obsessed over little things. What if I set it up over here? No, god damn it, just get the lighting going and shoot it.
Well, right now you're doing the spooky underlight as if you want to make someone look eerie, terrified, because it brings out like the shadows on their face.
Yeah, I'm real shadowy right now.
Hell yeah.
Comedic
It's,
lighting.
it's very beyond the black rainbow.
Yeah. I like that movie. Did you like that movie?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard not to like how crazy some of the designs in that movie
Like,
are
yeah, like when
for,
that skull is like fucking disintegrating upwards and shit. Like that shit look cool as fuck.
yeah, isn't there's like a strong man with like a little baby face or something
Yeah, that
in
shit was
there?
so cool, dude.
So eerie. I think he has a new movie coming out. Don't quote me on this. I think this year Panos Cosmatos got a movie coming out.
No, I don't like him because he's Greek. I don't like Greek people.
What do you mean you don't like Greek people? The
I
best
just
people.
I just don't like Greek people. Like I don't like them. They're loud. They're always talking about Greek stuff.
They
I
like to
just
know
I
how
don't
greasy things are.
yeah, I don't care for the Greeks.
Are you Greek,
I'm
LowRes?
Greek. I'm Greek as
Yeah,
fuck. My
I
last
thought
name's
You're
so.
Greek?
Corellis.
Yeah.
I thought that was Spanish, bro.
A lot. You know what? At my high school graduation, they called me Jaime because the dude saw my last name and thought I was Spanish.
Wait, so you're Greek?
I'm Greek.
Notice, by
Yeah.
the way, that as soon as I criticized Greeks, the Greek was like, "The fuck you mean?" Like,
I'm all American,
none of
first
my
and foremost.
ethnicities, like none
Okay.
of my if people said shit like, "Oh, Polish people, whatever," I wouldn't care. Greeks,
That's
different,
because we're
different.
trash. Like I'm not
Yeah,
Polish, but I'm Czech, and it's always been like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
People only say nice things though. They're like, "Oh, Czech, those are good people," and I'm like, "Sure, whatever. Who gives a fuck?"
Yeah, I bet they are.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Good.
yeah. Well, I didn't know you were Greek, Jay, but I'm sorry. I'm
You're
sorry.
slurring racist remarks towards me. Like,
I thought both you and Hans were Mexican.
wow. That's, they just, I guess, it could be a Latino podcast, movies, a
Movie.
podcast about
Movies, a
Latinos.
Latino podcast about Latinos.
He did
You
pitch to me
just
years ago. He was like, "What if we do movies but in Spanish?" I was like, "What do you mean? What if we do movies but in Spanish?"
Oh, I love that motherfucker. He's so funny.
This is movies, a podcast about the act of cinema.
Cinema.
He did his own movie podcast with a couple of Spanish speaking friends sometime after that. I think it lasted like 3 episodes. They put out 3 episodes, and that's just like deep side quests, movies
Side
canon for
quest
any.
lore, yeah.
Yeah.
Where like the whole podcast is just like, "K?"
Yeah. I would imagine. Yeah. I never listened, but
Spanish language people are so funny. What is his ethnicity? I always forget this.
so he's Mexican, he's Chinese, he's German, and Costa Rican by place where he lives.
He's
Residence.
Mexican and Chinese at the same time.
That's right.
Bro, that's crazy.
He must have like the biggest dick.
I don't know. It
That's
depends on how much Chinese is in there.
Mexican, Chinese, and what else?
So his dad was, I believe, Chinese and lived in Germany. Okay. And he married a Mexican woman. And they produced Hans in Mexico. But then Hans moved to Costa Rica.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that's
I've
how.
never laughed that hard at somebody's race before. That's oh, that's really
I
funny.
don't think there's a funnier ethnicity.
Oh man.
I don't think
Wow.
any ethnicity is funny besides that one.
Yeah. All right, dudes. I gotta go.
Oh yeah. Appreciate you coming on. Everybody listen to movies. Patreon.com/lowres. Sign
Thank
up
you.
for the $100 a month tier and
I mean, that would
tell
be nice, but honestly, we've gotten some horrible picks from so people who sign up for the $100 tier on patreon.com/lowers get to pick a movie for us to talk about. And the success rate of that has been like,
It's like Uncle Buck or what?
I would crave Uncle Buck with some of these movies that they've been picking for us. Somebody sent like Almost Famous extended edition, and it's a 3 hour movie of like, okay, all right, I guess we can do this. Sure. That's next up. But yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on and talking about
For
Kitano.
sure.
And I would love
Of
to
course.
return for any future Kitano episodes for sure.
Yeah,
oh
Um,
man.
yeah.
Yeah,
so
man.
thank you again, man.
Thank you.
Real quick before we sign off, go buy this book. It's called God's Fair No Better. Pre-order
Hell
that
yeah.
shit.
It's out already?
It's pre-ordered. It's coming out April 17th, but lots of pages, lots of book. So go buy that shit, fool.
The cover's super
Ronin
dope, by the way.
Trash. RoninTrash.bigcartel.com.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Kurt Huggins,
Big Kurt.
famous DC illustrator,
Mhm.
designed the cover.
Nice. Very nice. I'll put in my pre-order right after this episode. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hell yeah. Y'all be easy.
Peace.